So here's the deal with YouTube ads, right? When you know what you're doing, you can make a lot of money with YouTube ads. And if you do it wrong, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can lose a lot of money when it comes to running YouTube ads. And you may be asking yourself, well, how much does it actually cost to advertise on YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to dive into that. How much does it cost to advertise on YouTube? I'm going to explain how the Google Ads auction works and how that works with YouTube. And not only that, but if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to give you 3 different levers that you can pull that will lower your advertising costs on YouTube and also increase the performance. So you can be sure that these ads are making you money and not the opposite way around. So we've been running YouTube ads ever since they came out back in 2012. And so I was curious when I came across this question, I'm curious how advertising costs have changed on YouTube over the last decade. So what I did is I went into our MCC account and I pulled back from 2014 to 2022. And I pulled in all of our accounts. So we have over 100 accounts that we've managed ad spend on for YouTube. And I was curious, what have those changes been over the last 8 years across all these different accounts? Let's take the averages. And what I found was pretty interesting. So back in 2014, the average CPM, or cost per 1,000 impressions, was $12.52. So basically, to get 1,000 people to see your video for 1 second, it cost you $12, $12.52. The average cost per view around that same time was 11 cents. So to get one person and a view on YouTube ads is at least 30 seconds or half the ad. So it's a quality view, right? It's not just like Facebook or Instagram, they watch it for 2 seconds and they're out. It's like, hey, you have 30 seconds to get a view for YouTube. So it's a high quality view, and that cost 11 cents. Flash forward to 2022, what's changed? Well, the CPM is now $32.71. So that cost has nearly 3x'd in price to advertise on YouTube. What's interesting is the cost per view is 10 cents. So it's actually the cost per view went down a cent on average over the last year, which was interesting. So here's a couple takeaways from that. The costs for any advertising platform are only going to go up, rarely going to stay the same, and almost never going to go down in price. If anything, price always goes up. But the cool thing is the cost per view stayed the same. So you get an impression and a view are not the same thing. An impression is 1 second of someone's attention, and a view would be 30 seconds of somebody's attention. So why this is important is if you know how the auction works for Google, and you know how to turn different levers, basically how to turn an impression into a view, how to turn a view into a click, how to turn a click into a lead, and how to turn a lead into a customer. If you know these levers to pull, you can really make any ad campaign profitable, regardless of the platform, regardless of the costs, right? So again, I want to dive into how the auction systems work, how Google makes their money, and how you can too. But also I want to give you these levers that you can pull in order to lower your advertising costs and increase your advertising performance. So the first thing to be aware of is Google's auction system, right? A lot of people ask, well, how do Google or YouTube determine who can advertise? Or whose ad will you show? Because if you think about it, there's a lot of people advertising on YouTube. How does that work? So in this diagram right here, we got 4 different people. We got person A who says, hey, I will buy a lead for $14. And person B says, well, I'll buy a lead for $13. And person C says, I'll buy a lead for $12. And person D says, well, I'll pay $10 for a lead. These are all people in the same market. How does Google determine who's going to show their ads? And you'd think, you know what, whoever pays the most is going to get the ad shown. But that's not the case. That's why you see, usually what you're searching for on Google or YouTube, or what you're actively searching for, you see ads that are relevant to what you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, it's not about who can pay the most for the lead or pay the most per click. That is a factor, but it's not the factor. So how does Google determine who's going to see your ad? Well, there's a bid system, right? So the bid system is how much you're willing to pay for a specific action. You could say, I'm willing to spend $30 for 1,000 impressions, or maybe $12 for a view, a cost per view, or even say, hey, I'll pay $2 per click. And recently, with YouTube specifically, they've come up with these new bidding systems where you could say, hey, I just want to get as many conversions as possible or leads as possible within my daily budget. So that's another option. And one of my favorite ones is the target CPA, where you say, hey, I will pay $10 for a lead or a conversion. You basically tell Google how much you're willing to spend for a specific conversion. So that's the bid system. And that's something that doesn't change. You just basically tell Google how much you're willing to spend for a specific action. The other thing is the ad quality, which you do have complete 100% control over, right? The ad quality is measured in the quality score. And basically it's measuring how relevant and useful is the ad and the website to the viewer, right? And specific metrics that they use for YouTube ads is what's the view rate? View rate is how many impressions turn into views. And what's the click-through rate? Are people watching this and clicking on it? That's an indicator to Google that, hey, this person has a message or a video that people enjoy watching. That's why they're watching it. And they like it enough, they're going to click on it. So that's one factor. The other factor is the ad language. Are the language, what you're saying and showing in the ad, relevant to what the viewer wants to search for, or what they're looking for? So making sure that the language of the ad is matching up with the targeting for that specific person. And lastly, it's the landing page experience, right? Are people opting in or buying things based off the ad? So like if you have an ad that's talking about, hey, download this lead magnet that shows you how to save money when you buy your next home, the ad's talking about that, and making sure that the landing page is talking about that too. There needs to be some congruency between the ad, the message, and the landing page experience. So making sure that those are all aligned, and basically to give you a score on how high of a quality and how relevant your ad is. So when you go back to these people and you say, you know what, a lot of them are willing to spend the money, but maybe their bid isn't high enough. Maybe that they're not spending on what they need to in order to get the results they want. Or maybe their quality score is not what it needs to be. Like the landing page is off, or the language that they use in the ad is not relevant to who they're targeting, right? So making sure that all those three things are aligned, and the person who scores the highest score earns the auction. So in this case, person C, because they're willing to spend the budget, but also really because they have a high quality score, meaning the ad is relevant, the landing page experience is relevant, and they're using relevant language in that ad, that person is going to win the auction. And what's cool is not only do they win the auction where they'll show the ad the most, but also they're able to be in a spot where their advertising costs are lowered because they know they have a relevant score, and their performance goes up. So again, by focusing on the end user, the viewer, and making sure that you have a great ad, a great offer that's engaging and relevant and helpful and useful to the viewer, Google rewards you by, one, showing your ad more to those people, and two, doing it at a lower cost. So again, this is important. These are things that don't change. So now you know how Google's auction works and how the systems work. Now you know, okay, there are certain levers that you can pull in order to help you with a higher quality score, and also making sure your advertising costs are lower. So what are those levers? The first lever I think that anyone should know when it comes to advertising are, what are the actions or metrics in your business that you need to hit in order for your business to grow, right? Businesses grow by getting more customers and selling more products. And then you can reverse engineer that, right? So I think the first metric that you should know is, what is the goal? Like, how does your business grow? And it's typically getting more customers. And then the next question you ask is, okay, if I have a product that's worth $100, am I willing to spend $50 to get a new customer? So if you spend $50 and get a customer with 100, now you kind of make, $50 in that transaction. That's not including your cost of goods sold. But I think knowing what you need to spend or are willing to spend in order to acquire a new customer is an important place to start. So what's your cost per customer goals? And maybe before they become a customer, maybe they need to become a lead, right? Where they download something or they schedule a call with somebody. So locking in what are those metrics that need to be hit in order for your business to grow, and you can reverse engineer that. And when you come to Google and any advertising platform with that in mind, you know exactly, hey, is this working, or no, it's not working, you need to adjust. So I think the first principle is know what metrics need to be hit in order for your business to grow. Lock that in and make decisions around that goal, around that metric. The second principle that you need to learn to know in order to have better ad experience is you need to capture the attention in that first 5 seconds of that viewer. If you think about it, when somebody sees a YouTube ad, I think the first thought is, oh, where's the skip button? And their fingers hovering over the skip button. And the whole time they're watching their ad, they're like, is this relevant for me, or what's the benefit in it for me? So if you can, in your first 5 seconds, have a hook that calls out who is it that this message is for and why should they keep watching. If you can have a powerful hook, or that first 5 seconds, 10 seconds of that video that tells them, hey, there is a benefit to keep watching this video, then that is going to be that's the most critical step. Once you have their attention, then you can start to introduce the benefits and features of the product, the message that you have. But it all starts in that first 5 seconds. If you can't capture their attention in 5 seconds, that opportunity is out the window. It all starts there. So make sure that you have a powerful hook that captures the attention. And that leads me into principle number 3, which is test bullets before cannonballs. Before, when we would advertise for clients, we'd go all in on this high-end production video where we'd spend all this time, money, and resources creating this amazing ad. We'd hire actors and we'd do it really well. And we'd launch the ad and it would fail. It would only work 50% of the time. So the other 50%, it's not working. The ad's not resonating with the audience. And it was a huge letdown for us and the client. It's like, oh man, this isn't working after we spent all this time and attention trying to figure it out. So we kind of led with the cannonball instead of leading with the bullet. So now what we do is we test different messages. These are low cost, very easy ways to set up these ads. We call them VSLs, video sales letters, and we can test the messaging. Is this messaging landing? Is this getting people's attention? Are they watching the ad after 5 seconds? Are they clicking on the ad? And then this allows us to test 5 to 10 different hooks or messages to see what lands the most. And then once we find the winning creative or the winning ad that has the highest click-through rate, the lowest cost per lead, hey, we have a winner, and now we can go all in and create a really higher end video that discusses that message, that dives into that. And we have the data and the confidence to know that will work. So again, I think now that you know the Google Ad framework, if you know what metrics you need to hit for your business to grow, if you're able to capture people's attention in the first 5 seconds, and if you can have the patience and the wisdom to test the bullets before cannonballs, once you have all those things aligned, then you can go all in on the ads and start to spend more money because you know you're making that money back. But you really need to have those 3 things in place. So again, hopefully this helps you understand how much it costs to advertise on YouTube. You have specific numbers on like what the CPM and cost per view is. You know how the auction systems work. And you also now know what the levers are that you can use to lower your ad costs and improve your ad performance. I hope this video was helpful. If you haven't already, there's another video hanging out right here that I think you'd find relevant, especially in the YouTube advertising space. So give that a watch and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.